Class is in session for the final time in 2023. It's hitting the books, college football, Pub Sports Radio. Ian Cameron, Conor Mack with you, and we are ready to break down the second half of the college football bowl season, part 2. If you missed part 1 or have not seen part 1, just a refresher that we did every bowl game last week up until and including Wednesday, December 27th. So every bowl game between now and Wednesday, December 27th, if you're looking for the preview and the betting analysis of those bowl games, go to last week's show. You'll find every single bowl game there, right up to and including the Texas Bowl between A&M and Oklahoma State. That's where we left off on our last show. That was the final bowl game we did last week. Today on this show, part 2, we will talk the rest of them, starting with the Thursday, December 28 bowl games, starting with the Fenway Bowl, SMU, Boston College, all the way through to the 2 playoff semifinals on New Year's Day, the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl, Michigan, Alabama, Texas, and Washington. So without further ado, C-Mac, here we go. Part 2. We start Thursday, December 28th, the Fenway Bowl. And you're not splitting the atom figuring out just by the name where this is taking place. Yes, Fenway Park in Boston, hosting college football once again. It's SMU and Boston College. We've got SMU a 10.5-point road favorite, or not road favorite, but neutral field favorite here in this one. The total currently sitting around in the low 40s. We're talking, or 50.5, I should say, the current total here in this one. I think when you look at this matchup here with SMU and Boston College, you know, SMU is certainly the much better team. There is no denying that whatsoever. But when you look at, you know, the way things are going right now with Boston College, just didn't play very well down the stretch. Double-digit blowout losses, 3 straight to end the season against Virginia Tech. Actually, the Pitt loss was an 8-point loss, but still a Pitt team that wasn't really that great this year, and you lose by margin to them, and then you get whipped 45-20 by Miami in a game where I actually thought Miami didn't have much motivation, much incentive, considering they were off a couple of tough losses. They had to go to the Northeast, colder environment, play Boston College, and BC was just outclassed, you know, is the word to describe it. So I think it's difficult to bet Boston College here, even getting all these points. But when you look at SMU, you know, and what they've accomplished this year, it's a team that obviously won the AAC championship, beating Tulane. And your reward for it is going to the Fenway Bowl against a mediocre 6-6 ACC team in Boston College. I'm not so sure this is SMU all reveling in excitement and enthusiasm to play in this bowl game here. All things considered equal, if SMU is locked in and fired up, they're going to roll this team because they're just so much better, and Boston College was just awful down the stretch. There's no question about that. I think the biggest thing, too, is Castellanos. He's got limitations. He's a decent athlete. He can run a bit. But, man, his pocket passing accuracy and efficiency, that needs a lot of work. There's no question about that. And we know the defense for Boston College really hasn't been that good all season, especially when they've played some pretty good offenses. You know, when they faced the best offensive teams like a Miami, a Virginia Tech put 48 on them, Louisville put 56 on them. You know, they've had some really, really dismal performances. So it's a tough game. I mean, you look at the transfer portal situation. There's a few in the portal for Boston College. Preston Stone, he's injury absence, not a transfer portal absence, but an injury absence out for the year. Kevin Jennings will start. I'll be honest, Kevin Jennings is fine. And if anything, Kevin Jennings is going to get stronger here for this bowl game because of the practices. He's going to get even more time to work with the first team offense, get even more in tune and in rhythm, and have that greater continuity with this Mustangs offense. So, you know, normally I like to make a case for a double-digit dog, but I don't know if I can here unless I find things that I read between now and kickoff where SMU's got these guys out, a lot of people sitting out, not a lot of interest. Unless I see something like that, it's going to be hard for me to put my money on Boston College right now. No bet for me as of right now, but all things considered equal, I think if SMU's motivated, if SMU doesn't have anybody sitting out, I don't see no reason why they can't move the football up and down against this BC team. So maybe I'd get to an SMU team total, if anything. But as of right now, nothing at the moment for me in this bowl game. What do you think here, CMAC, SMU, Boston College?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe SMU could get to their team total in this one, but how pumped are they going to be for this? This is early start, in Fenway Park, cold. Uh, I think that's an advantage for Boston College, right? Just going down the street. And they should be pumped, a team that I don't think is very good. When I talked about SMU, should just be able to run it. That's Boston College's problem. They can't stop the run at all. And you hit on it because I want to touch it. It's just any step-up team, they got blasted. Like any team that was a lot better, and you kind of just ran through the few of them there. But, man, they just couldn't stop anything. Yeah, SMU team total. I mean, can this game stay under? Maybe. It's cold, early morning. I might take a look at that. But yeah, this is a lot of these games. It's going to be a waiting game. I'm going to have to say that a lot on some of this shit, but it's just true.
Yeah, one thing I want to point out too with Boston College as well going into this game. You look at the situation for them. No, sorry, not Boston College, Tulane, SMU rather. Their defense is capable. Okay, they struggled with Memphis a little bit, in that game. But, this is a defense that I thought they played a hell of a game against Tulane. Shutting them down, keeping them to 14 points. That was a very impressive performance. SMU's defense has been spotty. They've had some good performances. They've had some bad ones. But it's just, to me, Boston College's offense at times has just not been consistent enough throwing the football to take advantage of that. So, yeah, I am worried. Paul in our chat, Paul Taylor, the Sailor, love the name. What a slap in the face for SMU. You're an AAC conference champion and you play, a blob bowl game like this at Boston. And plus, too, that's another factor. Now, I don't know how many people they're going to draw, but this is like in Boston College's backyard, Fenway Park in Boston, this bowl game. But the thing is, their attendance figures have not been good because they've struggled for years, this program. So I don't know how much having this game at Fenway Park is really going to bolster the fan base turnout for Boston College in this game. But it definitely helps the fact that this is pretty close to Chestnut Hill for Boston College playing this Fenway Bowl. We go from a bowl game in one ballpark, Major League Baseball ballpark, to another. It's the Pinstripe Bowl, Yankee Stadium, of course. Rutgers and Miami. Miami 1-point favorites here, 41 the total here in this game. And in fact, we have seen a lot of money here leading up to today on the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. And you understand why when you start to see the players that have opted out and the players sitting out and the players transferring out for the Miami Hurricanes. It looks like Tyler Van Dyke in the transfer portal. He's already off to Wisconsin, already committed there. They've got Colby Young, one of their great receivers, in the transfer portal. A couple of pass rushers in the transfer portal. Outstanding linebacker, Corey Flagg, in the transfer portal. It looks like there's a key secondary player that's injured, may not play. There's a few opt-outs already, including James Williams, a safety who's been on the field for a ton of snaps over the course of the year. I mean, it's just all kinds of issues right now. You've got 3 defensive opt-outs for Miami. You've got Tyler Van Dyke in the portal, Colby Young, a great receiver, in the portal, and it looks like it's going to be because of all of these changes. Ja'Curry Brown is going to get the start at quarterback here for Miami in this game. He didn't play a lot this past season. You look at the numbers, it hasn't been, I'm trying to see, I don't think he's, 2022, he went 27 for 45, 60% completions, 230 through the air, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. But that was last year. He really didn't play much at all this year for Miami. So this has the makings of, and I felt this didn't pay off, this line of thinking for me when Miami played Boston College, where I said, they don't give 2 shits about this game. They're going to Boston College. It's a colder environment. I could see them just laying an egg and not playing well. But unfortunately, Boston College, from an athlete and a pure talent perspective, they were outclassed, and it didn't matter. Miami was just still so much better than them that they went to Boston College and they thumped the Eagles. I don't know if that's going to be the case here, because now it's late December. It's even colder now, and you've got all of these players, and I'm talking about not just starters. I'm talking about key impact players on both sides of the football missing from Miami. So I get it that the betting market's flocking toward Rutgers, but this is Can you trust Rutgers to win a football game against a program of this caliber? Like we're talking about now, not Rutgers getting 10, Rutgers getting 14. We're asking them to win this game against, a team that in a million years they would never be a pick 'em on a neutral field against a team like Miami. But given the situation, given all the opt-outs, given all the absences for Miami in this game, it levels the playing field quite a bit. And I know for a fact, from an enthusiasm, an incentive, and a motivation standpoint, the edge definitely has to be with Rutgers. No question about that. Greg Giano's team gets to play this mighty Miami Hurricanes team, the U, a real chance to test their mettle, see what they're all about. So
he used to be a coach
it's a tough
too
one for me
at
Connor,
Miami.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
100%. So for me, it's Rutgers or pass, even with the movement. I have no interest in Miami. The question is, from a quality of personnel standpoint, does Rutgers have it in them in the trenches? Did they have it in them from a speed perspective? Because you got to admit, even the backups from Miami, there's still way more speed and overall ability on that team than you have with Rutgers. Can you trust them now to win this game? That's the big question. But I'll say this right now: it's Rutgers or nothing. This has all the makings for Miami of a team that's just flat as a pancake here for this bowl game. What do you think here, Conor Mack?
Yeah, he said here, Yankee Stadium, it should be cold. Another game. That's what, at 2:00 Eastern, I believe, or even earlier. I don't have the time on here. Miami's just gotten their, killed too in bowl games. They haven't been very good the last few years at all. I think Rutgers should be pumped. I mean, they haven't been to, 2 in the last 10, 11 years, bowl games?
Yep.
So they should be pumped for this. I always think you just talked about getting points with Rutgers, and now they're not, even to the backups of Miami. And I still have this Rutgers offense that just like, even Miami's backups, their defense I thought was their best kind of side all year. It was pretty consistent. Their numbers are pretty good. But Rutgers should be pumped. I mean, this is short travel, from New Jersey, Piscataway here to the Bronx. I think they could win. It's just, do I want to full bet here? Free bet pick. I take Rutgers, but I don't think I'll have my money on it in the end.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, you're now it's win time now for Rutgers. They got to win this game. And even with Miami's questionable, the concerns we have about their motivation and how excited they'll be for this game, that's the one thing you probably have to be a little bit concerned about here if you're Rutgers. Will they be able to run the football is key? Because Wimsatt, we know, is a hit or miss quarterback, but Monangai's had a great year, outstanding running back for Rutgers. It's going to be interesting to see and it looks like all these guys are in for Rutgers. Like, Rutgers does not have many opt-outs. There's a couple in the transfer portal, but no one that was really a massive starter by any stretch of the imagination. The one key opt-out, and there is one, it's Max Melton, who's one of their best corners. Other than that, Rutgers looks like all hands on deck here for this bowl game against Miami, at least as of now, as of this recording. As with all these bowl games, I can't stress this enough, things can change between now and kickoff. And you're going to, I'm sure, have some bowl games where, what, this guy's out? Whoa, all of a sudden, I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, you're going to see some of that. I am sure of it in some of these bowl games between now and kickoff. All right, we continue along on Thursday, December 28th, the Pop-Tarts Bowl. I was waiting to see if Pop-Tarts would ever have a bowl name or have a bowl sponsored after them. It finally happened. Orlando, Florida, Pop-Tarts Bowl, Camping World Stadium, NC State, Kansas State. We've got Kansas State 3-point favorites, 47 being the total here in this game. Now, I think from a motivation standpoint, from what I see here in this game, I think both teams are into it. So it's really, I like to see that because, it's one of those situations where I think when you look at the matchup here, you got both teams wanting to play well. And that's going to be interesting. Brennan Armstrong is going to start. He got his starting quarterback job back. MJ Morris is out of the picture. There are a few opt-outs. There's not a lot of impact starters on either side of the ball that are in the transfer portal for NC State. And it looks like there was some talk that one of their better linebackers might be out too, but he's kind of reneged on his stance that he may not play. And that's Peyton Wilson for NC State, and it now looks like he might. So that's good news for the Wolfpack. Will Howard went in the transfer portal for Kansas State, so Avery Johnson now becomes the quarterback for the bowl game and moving forward for this program. So Johnson takes over. You look at Johnson's numbers this year, he actually played quite well. 23 of 50, 35. He got into 7 games this year for K-State, 65.7% completion rate, 301 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. So he actually played quite well. I don't mind, actually, one bit. Avery Johnson, when he got the opportunity for K-State, played well in his opportunities. So it's a fascinating bowl game here, and it's one that's, I think, tricky to bet, because I think you see both teams with some incentive here. I don't see massive motivational differences here between these two teams. I like both teams. I've made money with both of these teams throughout the course of the season, especially NC State down the stretch, as they finished 5-0 straight up, 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 games. So that's great momentum for them going into this bowl game. The one thing I do want to point out is NC State wrapped up the year with the win against North Carolina in the rivalry game. K-State wrapped up this regular season with a loss as a 10-point favorite at home against Iowa State. So, was that the pinnacle of the season for NC State, beating North Carolina, and this bowl game is an afterthought? That is a concern in the back of my mind. So it's a tricky game. I think above a field goal, I'd slightly leaned at the NC State side. We've got NC State as a dog. Dave Doran in the bowl games hasn't been that bad. You've got a defensive dog, and their defense, which I thought was going to be down this year. Very, very impressed with what I saw from NC State's defense, and they actually played their best down the stretch where they ripped off that 5-game win streak. So I lean NC State. Not sure if I'll get there with a bet on it, though. What do you think here, Connor? Pop-Tarts Bowl.
Yeah, this should be a pretty good one with two teams that should be motivated, but there are some transfers, and this is one to go look at. I think K-State a little bit more than NC State. You know what? In this game, man, I want NC State and Armstrong. It's crazy because I want to say I got to get – he played well those last few games after being benched and just looking awful all year long. And the Morris just, all of a sudden just leaving town, just saying I'm out of here was real weird. And that defense, though, both these defenses are pretty good. K-State, I thought, towards the end of the year gave up some points. You talked about that last one to Iowa State, that last game. But I like the NC State team here. I like their defense. I'll take Armstrong. I think they could win outright, but I'll take the 3.5 here. 3. Try to get what you can, shop around.
All right, next up, we go to the home base of Pub Sports Radio, San Antonio, Texas, the Alamo Dome, the annual home of the Alamo Bowl, the Valero Alamo Bowl. Valero sponsored this bowl game for years, too. So this is one of the classic, of the pre-New Year's bowl games. This is one of the more, well-known bowl games. It's been around for a long time, the Alamo Bowl. Arizona and Oklahoma. This and the Holiday Bowl, I think, are two of the more marquee, long-standing bowl games pre-New Year's Day. This one in the Holiday Bowl. Arizona, Oklahoma. We've got Arizona 3-point favorites, 62.5 the total in this game. The money's come in on Arizona, and I've already bet Arizona. This was definitely one of those spots where before when the matchups were announced, I said, I want my money on Arizona, because you talk about excitement and enthusiasm for the bowl game. Arizona will have it. I have no question about that. It's been a turnaround season. Jed Fish has done an outstanding job, 9-3 for this Arizona team this year. Their defense really got better throughout the course of the season. 6 straight wins to wrap up the regular season. And from a point spread standpoint, 10-2 against the spread for Arizona this year. One of the absolute best point spread teams in college football this year. Very impressive. Noah Fafita, they've got their quarterback, not only for this year, but moving forward. No question with the way he's played. Michael Wiley, Jonah Coleman, 2 good running backs. They got Jacob Cowing and McMillan leading them at receiver. Like I said, the defense has played better. It's just a remarkable turnaround from where this program was when Fish took over for the disastrous Sumlin era. Kevin Sumlin leaving the program in the dumpster. And for him to have turned it around like this, it's very impressive. I expect this team to be sky high in San Antonio for this bowl game. Excited. As far as transfer portals are concerned here, there's not really a lot. Jed Fish said there's maybe a few guys that might declare for the draft and sit out of the bowl game. We'll have to see if that's indeed the case. The one concern here is that the one main opt-out already confirmed is the starting offensive left tackle, Jordan Morgan. So that will hurt a little bit. Obviously, the blindside protection for Fafita at quarterback. But really, other than that, everyone's accounted for. For Oklahoma, there's all kinds of issues. They saw their OC, Jeff Lebby, depart from Mississippi State and take the head coaching job there. So there's a little change now. Who's going to call plays for Oklahoma here in the bowl game? That's something that throws things off a little bit. Dylan Gabriel's in the transfer portal. So Jackson Arnold is likely going to be the starting quarterback here for this game. 3 running backs in the portal. A couple of multiple offensive linemen in the portal. A very important secondary player, as well in the transfer portal. One of their receivers is out likely for this bowl game, key receivers due to injury. A couple more opt-outs on the offensive line, and Tyler Guyton and Andrew Rain. That's a right tackle and center. So there's definitely some absences here for Oklahoma. And, of course, Gabriel gone, Jackson Arnold in. I do want to point out, though, Jackson Arnold, when he played, and he got some playing time this year for Oklahoma, his numbers were pretty good. And now he's going to have the bowl practices to rev up here for this game. So this is more about who's missing. I think from a quarterback standpoint, going from Gabriel to Arnold is not the huge downgrade it might be for some teams. For me, it's the concerns about the cluster absences on the O-line. For me, it's about the multiple absences we might be seeing here on defense for Oklahoma. You combine that with, this is a team that beat Texas and was starting to think, Big 12 championship, starting to think maybe an outside shot at at the playoff. At that stage of the season, they kind of petered out down the stretch, a few losses, didn't play as well on defense. So I still like this Arizona side at anything -3 or less. Wildcats for me. I expect them to really come here to this bowl game with purpose. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, just great year for Arizona. Darlings ATS. We were on that, basically since the beginning. I'm a big Fafita guy. And one thing is, though, I think this 3, Oklahoma's never really a dog, a team I never back here. No Gabriel. I think there's a little value with Oklahoma. And we got to go through, you talked about some of the people out, defensive and on the offensive side of the ball. And with no Gabriel, the Jackson Arnold. Yeah, but he's a big recruit.
Yep.
I think he could look pretty good here. So I got to go through all that stuff. As much as I was Arizona all year long, if I could get if I could get the hook here, which I don't know, I kind of like Oklahoma here.
All right, kind of like in Oklahoma here with the 3. It's really, if they're dialed in Oklahoma, then taking 3 is not the worst thing here with them because they could obviously beat Arizona. It's going to be a question of just how mentally, dialed in and excited are they for the bowl game. And they definitely have more opt-outs than Arizona. We'll see if they can overcome that. I'm honestly kind of tempted. Now, I know the total's been bet down, and I get it. The total came down the moment it was announced he was in the transfer portal. But it's down to 62. I think Arizona will move the ball with Fafita. Oklahoma's defense just wasn't good down the stretch. They gave up 45, in their final game against TCU, the regular season. BYU didn't have a great offense. They gave up 24. Kansas got 38 against them. They didn't play great defensively down the stretch. I think Arizona can move the ball. But if you look at Arizona, while the defense, like I said, much, much better this year, we do have to keep in mind when they played, Washington, they gave up 31, USC 43. Colorado scored 31 against. They did have some games where they gave up points, and Jackson Arnold, to me, maybe not the downgrade that maybe some teams would have going from their starter all year to the backup. Jackson Arnold's a highly recruited kid, and he played well in the snaps that he got during the regular season. So the more the total drops, the more I'm interested in going the other way and maybe betting over in this game. So I'm definitely keeping an eye on this total. And obviously, you will not have a single issue to deal with weather-wise indoors at the Alamo Dome in the fast track there in San Antonio. All right, next up, we go to Friday, December the 29th, the Gator Bowl. This is at the home of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Everbank Stadium, Jacksonville, Florida, Clemson and Kentucky. The Jaguar fans are probably going to say, you know what, Trevor Lawrence, after that performance last night, don't join the Jaguar team next week at the next game. You're going to sit here, stay in Jacksonville, and you're going to go back to college, and you're going to suit up for Clemson here in this stadium for the Gator Bowl. I think Jaguar fans are tempted to kind of say that here to Trevor Lawrence after last night against the Ravens, but that's another story. Clemson, Kentucky, we've got Clemson down to a 5-point favorite in this game, 46.5 the total. This did open 7 in this matchup here, Clemson and Kentucky. It looks like as far as opt-outs for Clemson, well, Cade Klubnik, Will Shipley, all those guys are going to be good to go. But as far as the other players on this team, it looks like Antonio Williams, Dabo saying he's good to go for the bowl game, one of their better receivers. Keep an eye on Jake Brenningstool, the tight end. He had an injury down the stretch. We'll see if he's able to play for Clemson. And then from an opt-out standpoint, Bo Collins is in the transfer portal. Mitchell Mays on the O-line in the transfer portal. Those are the main ones. Oh, and also Andrew Makuba here in the secondary. That's a big loss for them. And a couple of opt-outs, too, on the defensive side of the football with Jeremiah Trotter Jr., the linebacker, Nate Wiggins in the secondary. There are some concerns here, and that it looks like maybe as well there could be another key run stuffer in the middle of that D front that is likely, not confirmed yet, but likely to opt out of this bowl game. So that's probably why the numbers dropped on Clemson. Those are some impact players. You know, you've got some key players on the offensive line that may not go. You got Bo Collins, who's a good receiver. You've got one of your best players in the secondary that's in the portal. And then you've got 3 key starters on the defensive side of the football that have already opted out. So, you know, definitely the betting market's showing concerns about that. Maybe that's why some of the money's come in here for Kentucky. On the Wildcats side, Jordan Dingle, the tight end, is probably the main transfer portal participant. Everyone else was, minor contributors to this Kentucky team. The big news, though, it looks like here is Ray Davis. This is key. This is what this bet hinges on for me. I need Ray Davis in there. He's declared for the NFL draft, but it looks like he is, at least as of now. Now, these things can change. He's saying now that he's going to play in the bowl game for Kentucky. But you never know with these guys that are in the NFL draft, because I saw a couple of instances last year, CMAC, where the player that declares for the draft initially says, "Oh, I'm in, coach. Put me in. I'm good to go." And then like a day or two before the bowl game, he's out.
So then he talks to their family, his agent, everyone. They're like, whoa. Yeah, exactly.
Pump the brakes here. So be careful with that. Like Ray Davis is a difference maker. Now, I don't usually say that about running backs, but in this offense, he matters that much, because that means if he doesn't play, you put a lot more onus on Devin Leary in the offense for Kentucky. And Devin Leary's a nice game. That's what Devin Leary, I thought Devin Leary at one point, the sky was the limit for him, a high ceiling. Yeah, I thought at one time he was a quarterback that could dominate in the college level. He's not that. What he is, he can be, a dink and dunk, efficient passer in the short to intermediate, especially a game manager. That's really what he evolved into, or devolved into, late in his NC State career, and now here at Kentucky. So to me, Ray Davis is the straw that stirs the drink for Kentucky on offense. So, but as of now, we have to act like he's going to play, because he said it himself that he's going to play in this bowl game. So if he's in, I lean Kentucky, and I agree with the move. But I'm waiting on that. I still am a little leery, quite honestly, of him playing in this game. But look, I'm not excited about laying points with Clemson here. And I said this weeks ago when we talked about Clemson's going to be in a minor bowl game. And look, this is a little bit more major. Like Gator Bowl's a pretty traditional bowl game, but it's still not anything that Clemson's used to or loves. Clemson loves being in the big New Year's games, the Rose Bowl, Sugar Bowl, Orange Bowl, playing in the playoffs. They have none of that this year. So the motivational element, too, concerns me about laying 5 points here with Clemson in this game. So I do lean Kentucky, but I'm not totally buying what Ray Davis is selling, that he's going to be in this bowl game. I'm going to need to wait a little closer to kickoff to get that final confirmation whether he's in or not. What do you think here, Conor? Gator Bowl.
Shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button.
Yes,
if you can. That's all we ask for in the end. I know Gonzo, my guy, renewed his membership. I forget who else was up there at the beginning. I can't remember, but I'll try to remember to get you. But Real Deal Prime, Ian, Gold 44, Paul, Taylor, the Sailor, my dude. Shout out to you, Jacqueline, Goran, what's up? Nuke Worker, my guy. I missed him in Vegas. Hopefully next year I'll meet up with you, my man. Have a few beers. Rants, Flea, what's going on? Yeah, let's hit it right here. Ravano, I liked Kentucky at the 7. That's gone. Obviously, if you didn't get it, I still kind of like them here as a dog. This is when I want to play Kentucky. Is with them at this price. I think they'll be motivated in this game. You mentioned Davis, obviously huge key. You hit on that. I think this under. I just think the line's sharp with the total here. I like the under. This would be really nice. I think if this was 50.5, 51. I'd really like it to the under. I think Clemson's defense is pretty good. Kentucky's has been solid all year. At times they've gotten gashed, but I was looking at that way. I don't know if I can pull the trigger on the under, but I'm looking that way with Kentucky as well. I think you got to take the points or nothing.
And it was looking at one point just a few weeks ago, there might be some disruption in the coaching staff because it was starting to look like maybe Mark Stoops was going to take another job elsewhere, but not the case. He is staying at
He's
Kentucky.
back.
So that's good news for the bowl game because the bowl prep doesn't get, that throws everything out of whack when you have an interim makeshift coaching staff in the bowl game, but not going to be the case now for Kentucky. All right, the Sun Bowl. This is an annual bowl game, El Paso, Texas. This one's been around for a long, long time. Sun Bowl, Notre Dame, Oregon State, home of UTEP. We've got Notre Dame, 6.5 point favorites, 43 being the total. Yeah, the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. That's right. I forgot that cornflakes or Frosted Flakes, I should say, have been sponsoring it. Yeah, so hopefully this bowl game then is great. Well, we'll see about that with the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. I couldn't resist doing that. All right, you look at Notre Dame here. No Sam Hartman, obviously, he's departed for parts elsewhere, obviously, and we'll see now what ends up happening with the situation involving the quarterback spot. It looks like Steve Angeli is going to be the starting quarterback here for this bowl game for Notre Dame. So, yes, he's opted out of the bowl game and obviously departed. So we'll see how Angeli plays. He had 76% completions this year. Actually, the numbers are good. He didn't play a ton, got into 6 games. He did have 25 pass attempts in 6 games this year for Notre Dame. 76% completions, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 272 passing yards. So the numbers are actually pretty solid in limited duty for Steve Angeli. We'll see if they work with him here for the bowl game. It looks like in this one we've got, and then also something else to point out for Notre Dame. You look at who else is going to be missing here. It's a laundry list. Plus, Gerard Parker, the offensive coordinator for Notre Dame, has left to become the head coach at Troy. So there's an OC, new play caller for this game is going to be in the mix for Notre Dame. But in the transfer portal, you're talking about a few receivers, Chris Tyree, Rico Flores, Tobias Merriweather, all in the portal. And then for opt-outs, you mentioned Sam Hartman as he's turning pro and not playing in this bowl game. It looks like 2 terrific offensive linemen, Blake Fisher, and especially the left tackle, Joe Alt, who's going to be a very high first-round pick in the NFL draft this year. Both of those guys are opting out. And for this game, Alt, obviously, for the NFL draft. And then the other one is the big one, Audric Estime. We know how vital he's been to the offense. Great running back, great Notre Dame career. He will not play Audric Estime here in this game against the Oregon State Beavers. So that's a lot of talent. That's a lot of key contributors missing for this game with an unknown at quarterback in Angeli because we just don't know, how he's going to play. And another one, too, in the transfer portal that's worth noting, the starting center, Zeke Correll. Started the season as the starting center. He's in the transfer portal as well for Notre Dame. So I think you put it all together, and that can explain why Notre Dame opened a 10.5 point favorite here, and they're down to 6.5 here in this game against Oregon State. And then you look at the Oregon State Beavers. While I agree that Notre Dame's vulnerable now, it's not like Oregon State's got, an outstanding situation here either. Jonathan Smith is gone. He took the Michigan State head coaching job. Trent Bray, the defensive coordinator, it looks like he's gone from the bowl game as well. It looks like Kefense Heinsohn is going to be the interim coach. Anthony Perkins, the interim DC. So you've just got a hell of a huge shakeup with Oregon State, going into this game. Now you've also got DJ Uiagalelei in the transfer portal for Oregon State, which means Ben Gulbranson is going to be the starting quarterback here
Good old
for
Ben.
Oregon State, and he's been in the program here for multiple years. I think this is fourth year with the Oregon State program. He's had a total of 204 pass attempts in his career. The most came last year, because last year he started a bunch of games for Oregon State. He completed 62.4% of his passes, 1,455 passing yards, 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. This year, obviously DJU, basically the guy from start to finish. So Ben Gulbranson, he only ended up having 1 pass attempt this year for Oregon State. So, but he does know the program, and he knows the system. He knows the offense. So that should help a little bit. It's a really tough bowl game, Connor, because to me, you've got question marks on Notre Dame. I'm not excited about laying Notre Dame with Notre Dame. I'm not laying it with Notre Dame. I initially wanted Oregon State, but now you see Smith's out. You see a turnover in the coaching staff. You don't know how Gulbranson's going to play, or Angeli on the other side. You got 2 quarterbacks that, it's almost flip a coin. Who can you trust to put the better performance together with the extra time to prepare with the bowl practices? What I will say about these 2 teams as well is it may come down to whose defense can step up a little bit more. And when you look at the defensive numbers for both of these teams, Notre Dame's defensive numbers were a little bit superior, at least in terms of total yards allowed to Oregon State. That being said, Oregon State's defense this year was very, very good against the run, even better in that regard than Notre Dame against the run. So I think that's critical because I'm not sure what we're going to get in the passing game from these 2 quarterbacks. So who's going to run the football better and stop the run better? Well, they're both pretty good against the run. I would say, though, Oregon State a slight advantage. I mean, I'm definitely still leaning Oregon State, but man, the love that I had for Oregon State weeks ago, now Smith's out. Now, DJU's in the transfer portal. And I think they're excited to play, but just a lot of moving parts. And the coaching staff is just completely shaken up and a makeshift staff for this bowl game. And as I've said many times, that's not always a bet on spot situation for me. So it's a lean to Oregon State, but I don't know if I'll bet it. I totally agree with the total now, but everybody's on that. Like this total opened 46.5. It's down to 42.5. I'm even seeing a 41.5 out there now.
41.
Totally agree with the move to the under. I think it's definitely going to be a slow paced game. Neither team pushes pace. Neither team is, I don't know if the passing game is going to be great from either quarterback. They want to run the ball, and both of these teams have very good run defenses. So yeah, it has the makings of a lower scoring game for sure, but everybody's onto that. You're not getting a good number anymore with the under in this game. What do you think here, Connor? Sun Bowl.
Yeah, I think it is going to be a lower scoring game. And if it's like that, I want the points. If it's not that it's just I'm crazy about this. Notre Dame, even we talked about in some of these big teams, Miami, stuff like that, their backups still really, really good. Some of these guys that are going to get in. Yeah, and the quarterback situation, it's just like, what do we get with these guys? I think both teams are just going to run it good defense. You mentioned all the people out Notre Dame, offense, defense, all the stars. Oregon State, the coaching change, they got guys on defense that are out. They got slew. And one of their top guys just went, to SC? Arnold, their linebacker. He's really good. He's gone. They got a few others that are out. But in the end, I don't know if I bet it, but I'd be on the dog or nothing here, in a low-scoring game if I had to.
Yep, I would say the same. I would say the same about this one. Dog and under if I bet it. All right, Liberty Bowl, Memphis, Tennessee, Memphis, Iowa State. We've got Iowa State now 8.5-point favorites, 57.5 the total in this game. It is close to home for Memphis. There's no question. That's definitely an advantage for them. And they are an underdog. And look, I'm not a fan of this Memphis team. You guys know that. I've said this over and over again, and I don't like this coach either. I think this program's gotten worse, not better, under his tutelage, Silverfield. I think his days are numbered. And I don't know. I don't think they're going to make a change yet. But I think if he's back next year, it's going to be clock's ticking on him. Let's put it that way.
But he went 9-3 this year. It's going to be a couple more years.
That brought him some time. To me, they're not an impressive. Like you're right, that's actually a very good record. But to me, they're not an impressive 9-3. Not on defense anyway. The defense is absolutely wretched. They're very fortunate they outscored their problems in a lot of their wins because Seth Hennigan, did have a very good year. They've got good running game. They've got Rock Taylor leading a pretty good receiving core for Memphis. So that bailed them out so many a time. But now you're going to have to face Iowa State, and Iowa State can play pretty solid defense and maybe at least try to take away this Memphis explosiveness offensively. Like Memphis is a terrific offensive team. There's no question. Like 45, 45, 59, 44, 34, 45. Those are the points they scored in their last 6 games. Iowa State, I'll tell you what, though, they actually showed in a couple of their games down the stretch. Defense played really well early. I look at it and I see they gave up 27 to Oklahoma State, 50 to Oklahoma, 28 to Kansas, 26 to Texas, 35 in their final game of the regular season against Kansas State. So to me, the more you dig into it, the more it looks like Iowa State's defense, more so great against the mediocre to below average offenses. But when they had to face an offense that could move the football and put up points and have that explosiveness, that's where they struggled a little bit. Now, Memphis does have 2 key O linemen that are in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
2 of them are starting, and including the left tackle, Pounders. He's gone. He's in the transfer portal. So that does hurt for this offense. This is a great offense, but you're talking about your starting left tackle not playing. Your right guard's also in the transfer portal. Keep that in mind. We'll have to see. There's a couple injuries on the defensive side of the ball for Iowa State in this game. It looks like they've got a couple of injury concerns, not so much with the transfer portal. All the transfer portal guys are bit players, backups, not key starters. So that's the good news for Iowa State. But Malik Verdon, one of their better safety players, might miss this game due to injury. He's important. Keep that in mind. There's also a potential that another one of their very key secondary players may miss, and that's not what you want to see here against an offense like Memphis. I am concerned with the left tackle being out, but is that going to be enough to slow down this offense? I'm not so sure. You look at Iowa State on offense, Rocco Beck, a work in progress. But again, much like I said with Memphis or Iowa State's defense, when they faced a better offense, they struggled. I think when Iowa State steps down in class to face a weaker defense, they're capable. We did see them score 34 against Oklahoma State, 27 against TCU, 30 against Cincinnati, 30 against Baylor, 45 against BYU, 42 in the final game against Kansas State. So that offense, against some defenses that aren't as good, Iowa State showed they could move the football. I am very interested in over 57.5 in this game. I very much am. I expect this probably to make my card. I think I will be on the over in this game. I think Iowa State, when you look at their offense, this is a chance to go up against one of the weaker defenses they faced all year. And I think when you look at Memphis's offense, Iowa State's defense struggled with the speed of the better offenses on their schedule. And Memphis does have plenty of that and plenty of quick strike ability. So I would look at an over here more than anything. What do you think, Conor? Liberty Bowl.
Over. Memphis, dead over team. I don't think they can stop Iowa State. Also, if you want to bet something, I think you look at Iowa State team total. If you're a little worried about laying, the 9 here in this one. And why it gets over, because, I think Memphis can get some. This Iowa State defense just hasn't been what it has been in the past. You talked about those points they've given up to some of those teams. Shout out to my guy, G. What's up, my man? So, I just think the 9-3 record is flawed. We all know that the teams that they played, they did have a good win early on in the year against Boise. Boise kind of a different team. But same old Memphis here. But as a dog, it's interesting. I don't know, though. Like, I would stick to their team total and the over, and then even taking them as a dog. And that's when the only time I ever take, and we talk about this. You never play points with Memphis. Only take them as a dog. But I don't even think this is enough. I would need over 10 to even look their way. So points.
I think if you bet Iowa State before it got above a touchdown, that's a really good look. Iowa State at anything -7 or better. I'm a little bit not as interested now at 8.5, but I don't want Memphis. I don't trust Memphis's defense here because say what you will about their offense, which is going to be able to keep them in it. That defense, this is a team that could run them over. In my opinion, because Iowa State's offense did get better. They basically put up, that big number against Kansas State late in the season. That was extremely impressive. It tells you this offense is coming around. Beck's getting more comfortable. They're running the ball better. That's trouble for Memphis. Memphis is going to have to score and score a lot if they're going to cover this number, in my opinion, even getting 8.5 like they are. as underdogs in this one. All right, we move along. That's still on Friday, December 29, the Cotton Bowl, Jerry's World, AT&T Stadium, home of the Cowboys, Arlington, Texas, Missouri, Ohio State. Missouri 2.5-point favorites, 49 the total. This opened Ohio State 6.5-point favorites, and look at the move. Now it's Missouri 2.5-point favorites. Yet it's funny, everyone's reacting to the belief that Marvin Harrison Jr. and Egbuka, Travion Henderson, and all these guys are going to opt out. Of course, Kyle McCord's already transferred out into the portal, and Devin Brown now is going to take over at quarterback for this bowl game. All these concerns here that Ohio State, the writing's on the wall, that Ohio State's just not interested. They're disappointed, missing out on the playoff. McCord gone, 72 pass attempts in his career at Ohio State, by the way, for Devin Brown, who's going to take over. Julian Fleming in the transfer portal. You look at Mayan Williams has already opted out, although he's been out of the mix at running back for a while now. And then the potential opt-outs, like we say, Marvin Harrison Jr., Egbuka, Cade Stover, the tight end, Josh Proctor, the safety, Tua Molawa at the defensive end spot, Michael Hall Jr., Eichenberg, the linebacker, who's really good. They all might be out for Ohio State here in this game. So I knew that this could happen, and I jumped on it early. Missouri at plus. I didn't even get the best number. I didn't get Missouri to +3 in this game, but I jumped on it at +3. I would say wait now. You want to make if you're betting Missouri now, you better make damn sure that these guys are all going to be out for Ohio State. Otherwise, you're playing with fire, because let's be real. If Ohio State's got some or all of these players that are considered to maybe opt out in the game, then there's no way Missouri should be favored on a neutral field against them. But that's the difference. We expect them, a lot of them, if not all of them, to be out. And because we're going off that knowledge and that belief, I think, to me, it's still Missouri or pass, but I would be careful if you haven't bet it already. And I expect Missouri to be fired up. Eli Drinkwitz has said everybody's looking like they're going to play. There's really not anybody opting out. There's one guy in the transfer portal for them, and that's Damian Williams. That's it. And he's a guy that didn't play much. So all the starters are in. They're excited. Brady Cook, great year. Schrader running the ball was absolutely outstanding for Missouri this year. And then, of course, they've got the NFL-bound receivers that look like they're all going to play, including Luther Burden and Theo Weiss for Missouri, who are outstanding receivers. So it's a big move, but to me, if all these guys are out for Ohio State, the big move is warranted here in this game. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, it is. I mean, Missouri, great season. They should be pumped for this. They had good wins, and the two losses, to Georgia and to LSU, they were in that game, especially the LSU game was a really tough loss. I mean, that was back and forth the whole way in that one. McCord's gone. I mean, he wanted out. I don't think he was ever going to stay there anyways. So I think Brown being in is good for Ohio State. The big question is, I heard some of these guys are going to play, but others, this is Ohio State, they're going to be out for the draft and opt out. I'd wait on that. And maybe this gets more than over the field goal. I'd maybe look the other way. And depending on who's in, this is still Ohio State. I think this game could be close and very, very good. As good as Missouri's been all year long. So this one's definitely a wait for me. And if you got Missouri early like that, just to win the game, kind of, you're talking about, that was the way to go, if you like that.
All right, we got the next game is the first game now of Saturday, December the 30th, the Peach Bowl, Atlanta, home of the Falcons, Ole Miss, Penn State. Penn State 4-point favorites, 48.5 the total here in this one. You look at the situation with these two teams for Ole Miss. It looks like for them, a lot of their transfer portal guys are bit players, bit components, not major critical starters. Of course, Penn State, very important to point out that they've hired a new OC, but they're going to keep the current OCs there. And plus, defensive coordinator Manny Diaz gone from Penn State. He's now the new head coach at Duke. So we do have a little bit of a shakeup on the defensive side with the coordinator and who's going to call plays on defense here for Penn State in this game. But for the most part, they have most of their starters expected to play. Drew Aller's going to play. Nick Singleton and Katron Allen at running back. Keandre Lambert-Smith. They're all in for Penn State. Jackson Dart, Quinshad Judkins, Ulysses Bentley, Trey Harris, Jordan Watkins, Aiden Williams. All the offensive starters are in, looks like, on defense. Ole Miss is going to have most of their talent, accounted for. I don't know. To me, it's Ole Miss or nothing. I'm not laying points with James Franklin and Penn State. Penn State, every time they've played a really good opponent this year, we know what's happened. They lose to Michigan. They lose to Ohio State. They don't beat the good teams. They're a bully. They beat the crap out of your Ohio's of the world and your Eastern Michigans of the world and your Delawares of the world. But when it comes time to play someone of quality, that's where this team just repeatedly has not gotten the job done enough on a consistent basis. And you look at down the stretch for Penn State, again, dominated Rutgers and Michigan State, good on them. But again, the two losses they suffered on the year were against Michigan and Ohio State. Ole Miss on the flip side, their only losses this year were to Georgia and Alabama. Alabama won the SEC. They're in the playoff. And Georgia, in their game, they had the bad game there, but Georgia narrowly missed the playoff and only missed the playoff because Alabama beat them in the SEC championship game. So it's a very good season for them. They really took care of business outside of that. Catching points, facing this, very, very tough SEC schedule that they had to play this year. I'd certainly lean to Ole Miss right now at the current number. What do you think here, CMAC Peach Bowl?
Yeah, it looks like you mentioned. I mean, Ole Miss. Both these teams are going to be up for this one. Dart's gonna be in this game. God. Over lane now 3.5-4 with Penn State. Not something I want to do. One thing I thought it was pretty sharp, but I lean under. There was a couple games LSU, Georgia kind of exploited them, but this Ole Miss, I was on a ton of their unders all year long, like 3 or 4 of them. I think the only beat I had was the A&M game, that 38-35 game. I don't see there being a ton of points in this game. Penn State does have a solid defense. I think they could struggle to get points. So in a tight game that's in the 20s, give me the 4 with Ole Miss.
Yeah, it should be. It's a good bowl game. It's a good pre-New Year's Day bowl game here. The Peach Bowl. These are two very good teams.
Lane Kiffin needs a win. I think they've lost the last couple, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
Kiffin's
track record in bowl games isn't great. And at least with Penn State, they did have, I think, the one game in the Rose Bowl where they won.
They won last year, Utah.
Yeah, that's the one. Yep. That's really that's the one big win he's had, James Franklin here, is that game against Utah. But again, he's had a roadblock against Michigan and Ohio State in the Big Ten. He did have a nice win there last year. We'll see if he can bring another win to the bowl season here in the Peach Bowl. All right, Music City Bowl, Nashville, home of the Tennessee Titans, Nissan Stadium, Auburn, Maryland. We've got Auburn 2.5-point favorites, 50 the total here in this one, little Big 10 versus SEC. This is one where, you look at the situations right now in terms of who's going to miss the game. Nothing major or significant, at least at the moment. Looks like Peyton Thorne, Little Tua, Talia, Tonga Vailoa, they're all going to be good to go for this bowl game here in the Music City Bowl. So that's good to see. It's going to be good to see finally some bowl games here as we go on later in the slate where there isn't everybody opting out for a change or in the transfer portal. You look at this game as far as Auburn, a lot of their transfer portal guys are, again, minor players. The backup quarterback, Robbie Ashford's in the transfer portal. Good on him. I don't think they'll miss him too much after what I saw to him. But you look at the opt-outs, potential opt-outs, a couple on defense, but nothing confirmed yet. For Maryland, there are starting tight end is in the transfer portal. Starting linebacker, Jay Sean Barham in the transfer portal. Other than that, though, everyone else is kind of a backup. Now, keep in mind there are a couple that are still considering opting out. One has one in the secondary as well. Tarheeb still also opting out in the secondary for this Maryland team, but they will have Talia. The majority of the starters are in. Same thing with Auburn. There's nothing major yet that we can say about this game. So it's basically, handicap this game as you will. I actually lean a little bit to Maryland here. I mean, when I look at Auburn, I worry about Auburn's mindset here because they had the loss to New Mexico State, which was a hideous loss. They battled their guts out. You know what I mean? Like they put everything into the Iron Bowl against Alabama. That was their national championship. They looked like they might win the game. And then, of course, Jalen Milroe pulls off the miracle, 4th and 20 touchdown pass to beat Auburn. It's a gut-wrenching loss in a game they felt like they had in their back pocket. And now you got to, come back weeks later and play the Music City Bowl against a, middle of the pack Big Ten. You know what I mean? I mean, I just worry about where's Auburn's head at for this game. Are they locked in? Are they geared up? Are they locked in? Are they dialed in and ready to put their best foot forward? I'm not so sure about that here for Auburn in this game. So I would lean Maryland. I think Maryland is into this game. Maryland, again, didn't play well in the middle part of the season. When you're losing to the likes of Illinois and Northwestern, as big favorites, that's concerning. But they kind of got it back got it going again, played better down the stretch. They beat, not great teams, Nebraska and Rutgers, but let's also keep in mind they took Michigan down to the wire, 31-24 a few weeks ago. Played a really good game against that Michigan team. So I actually lean to the Terrapins here a little bit in this one. What do you think, C-Mac? Music City Bowl.
Yeah, I think this could be a pretty good football game. You talked about it. Not a ton of guys out on both sides of the ball. I think this comes down to the quarterbacks and their turnovers. Really, who has the better game? We've seen how Tua's done in the past. He can look really good and give it up. And on the flip side, this is under 3, so I'm not crazy because anything, even against a bad team, Peyton Thorne, I don't want to be laying points with, and they're sticking with him. That I hear, he's in here. He'll be back next year, and I just don't love him as a quarterback at all. He can run it, but I think Auburn's a little bit better team, just all around here. So I like the other way here a little bit. I'd lay the 2.5 with Auburn.
Yeah, to answer someone's question, there is no that bowl game. We're recording this basically with the famous Toastery Bowl just about to kick off. He's out, Austin Reed. Austin Reed's out. He's not playing. That's why the money's come in like crazy on Old Dominion in that game against Western Kentucky. It's going to be Turner Helton, the son of the head coach, Tyson Helton, by the way, for Western Kentucky at quarterback. So that's where we're at with that. And that's part of the reason why and I think there's a few other opt-outs for Western. To me, that feels like a motivational mismatch, that game, in favor of Old Dominion. But it's got to play out that way on the field. And we will see if it does there.
Yeah.
But that's the update with that. All right, next up on Saturday, December 30, we've got Georgia and Florida State. Georgia, 14-point favorites, 44.5, 45 the total. This is the Who Gives a Shit Bowl. They shouldn't call it the Orange Bowl. They should call it the Who Gives a Shit Bowl. Between these two teams, I mean, obviously there's going to be fan bases and college football fans that care because all things are equal. If Georgia's full strength and Florida State's full strength and they both want to win the game, it's got the chance to be a hell of a game. But we have no clue about any of that. These are the two most disappointed teams, obviously, to be left out of the college football playoff, and especially on the Florida State side. We know it. We heard it for weeks about, Mike Norvell and Jordan Travis and their outspoken comments about being left out of the college football playoff, being screwed in their belief out of being in the playoff. Unprecedented to have an undefeated Power 5 conference champion not in the playoff. And it's brutal, man. It sucks. It's shitty. Like, there's no other way around it. It's really unfortunate for Florida State. The problem for them is everything that basically had to happen for them to somehow get knocked out of it happened in the conference championship weekend. The way it played out is as Washington and Michigan were winning their bowl games and going undefeated as conference champions, they were getting in, no question. With Penix and with that Michigan team, they were going to put those two teams in. So what ended up hurting Florida State, the one thing that really caused this was Alabama beating Georgia. That's what knocked Florida State out of the playoff. Because say if it's right or wrong, they were not going to keep even a one-loss Alabama team that's an SEC champion, and how they love the SEC and think that's the greatest conference in the history of college football. They are not going to keep, the SEC champion that beat a Georgia team that's a defending national champion that had won 29 games in a row, that had been the number 1 ranked team all year. They were not going to keep Alabama out of the playoff after they beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. And unfortunately, in the demise of Florida State, because Alabama beat Georgia and they had to put them in the playoff, well, if you're putting Alabama into the playoff, C-Mac, you have to put Texas in. Because Texas is a one-loss conference champion, and Texas beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. So it's like a package deal. If you're putting Alabama in the playoff, you have to put Texas in the playoff. You can't do that to Texas. Texas beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. They're a one-loss Big 12 champion. They had to put Texas in. It's like if Alabama's going in, Texas was going in with them. And unfortunately, that combination, it just killed Florida State, and it's heartbreaking. And it's unfortunate that this is the last year of the 14 playoff, because if this was any other year, that we wouldn't have to worry about this crap. If it was next year that this happened with the 12-team playoff, because obviously Florida State would get in. You could have all 5 Power 5 conference champions undefeated, and for every year after this year, there's never going to be a controversy because they're all going to get in, because now we're expanding the 12-team playoff next year. So it's unfortunate that this was still the last year with the 14 playoff, and this was an unprecedented year where you had 3 undefeated Power 5 conference champions. And I think there's still some way you got to find a way to put them in, but unfortunately not my decision to make. So now the question becomes for this game with Georgia and Florida State, who can put the disappointment aside enough to come back here and be ready to go and be ready to play a good football game. I think that ends up being the big question going into this bowl game here with Georgia and Florida State. I'll be honest, Connor, I don't have anything on this game right now. Obviously, Georgia deserves to be favored, in this game. But again, they're not used to being not even in the playoff. They're used to winning championships. To me, I've seen this movie before, though, where everyone knee jerks, bet against Florida State. They're emotionally crushed. They're emotionally just distraught not getting into the playoff. They could actually use these few weeks to just, lick their wounds, come back and say, you know what? Maybe we give this Georgia team everything we can handle and prove to this damn committee that we deserve to get in. Because I've seen that before, where you think, oh, flat as a pancake. They're emotionally, they have no interest in this game. And then all of a sudden you see the bowl game play out and they've rallied the troops and say, you know what, stick it to the committee and show them what a mistake they made, keeping Florida State out of the 14 playoff. Maybe they take that approach and they do get themselves fired up. To me, this is my best advice, Connor, for this game. And I'm not sure if you agree, but bet this game live. We're going to be doing some live bet streams throughout the bowl season, probably later on when we get to the bigger ones here on Pub Sports Radio. But bet this thing live. See how these two teams come out. Who's making the plays? Who's excited? Who's flying around out there? And which teams look like they're moping around? Was me, defeatist attitude, committing stupid penalties, turning the ball over, which is a lack of enthusiasm and preparation, and just get an early look for how these teams are playing out and then bet that game live accordingly. That would be my best advice, honestly, for this bowl game. Plus, when you mentioned the opt-out situation here, Carson, there's just a ton of potential opt-outs. I mean, and they're all potential opt-outs. That's the thing. Carson Beck, but a potential opt-out for this game, not confirmed as of yet for Georgia. A bunch of others, with Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. And you go on down the list, just tons of them. And then you've got some injuries, too, that Georgia had to deal with. Obviously, Tate Rodemaker should be the guy that starts here at quarterback for Florida State, but they've also got a few players in the transfer portal. Johnny Wilson's already opt out. I'm hearing that Keon Coleman might opt out, but not confirmed. That Trey Benson might opt out, the great running back, but not confirmed. That Jared Verse, who's going to be a great pass rusher, I think, at the next level, he might opt out for Florida State. So it's just a wait and see. And I would say whoever the fuck takes the field, wait till the game starts, wait till it's kicked off, and then bet the game live based on what you're seeing with your own 2 eyes. Who's into the game, who's playing well, and who's not. That's my advice here. What do you think, Connor? Orange Bowl.
Yeah, I want nothing to do with this. Shout out to my guy, Big Ragu, Nasty Nate. He feels about the committee. I love it. One thing I think, that's a great way to do it, because why bet this? What's going to happen? Who's going to play? Who gives a shit? Who doesn't? Obviously, they're going to play it. There's too much goddamn money involved with these two teams and these bowl games. Like, the one thing pregame I could look to is both these defenses are really good. And Rodemaker, and I don't know how Florida State really moves the ball. They struggle the last, 2 games there with Florida and Louisville. So I look at the under, just dead under.
All right, we go to the Arizona Bowl. Next up, Barstool Sports production, Toledo and Wyoming. It is Wyoming 3.5-point favorites, 44.5 the total in this game. This game, of course, taking place at Arizona Stadium, Tucson, Arizona. I believe the home of the Wildcats. So that's where this game is going to end up being. I agree with Wyoming initially. 3.5, though, is a little tricky. You know what? I'm always a little leery of ever laying more than a field goal with this team. That's just the way it is. They're not a gifted offensive team with Peasley at quarterback by any stretch of the imagination. Now, Toledo, to me, is a team that I worry where their heads are at. They lost the MAC championship to Miami O, and now you're playing a run-of-the-mill bowl game. I definitely think I agree with Rance. It's a Wyoming spot. I think the move to Wyoming and I like the way Wyoming played down the stretch. Played a lot better. They had a couple of big-time bad teams, Nevada and Hawaii, but absolutely laid waste to those teams. And to be honest with you, when you look at Toledo's offense, and I said this again, the MAC just didn't have enough good defenses. They didn't have enough physical defenses. The teams that along the defensive line were good in the trenches. Wyoming is that. Okay, they're going to meet some resistance in this game here, this Toledo offense. So I agree here as far as the move to Wyoming. I did bet a little Wyoming money line about a week and a half ago. It was around minus 140 at the time. The money line's gone up to like minus 170 now, and the point spread's gone up to 3.5. So I don't like it as much, but I don't think I'd be betting Toledo, quite honestly, here. I worry about their offense being shut down by this Wyoming defense. There's no really good defensive teams in the MAC outside of Miami O, who won the conference. And look what Miami O did to Toledo in the MAC championship game. So I like Wyoming here a little bit. But again, 3.5, not nearly as much at that number. But I don't want to back Toledo in this game. What do you think here, Conor? Arizona Bowl.
Yeah, I totally agree here. This is moved. It keeps moving. 3.5. I see 4s. That's the only thing here with Wyoming. Just as a favorite and not in their backyard. I know this is a bowl game, but I think they beat Toledo. I bet against Toledo a ton this year, especially when they're always a huge favorite. And this year I lost a couple they covered, but won a few as well in the championship game. So yeah, I'm leaning to Wyoming. You know what I think they could do? I still think they have a little bit better defense, and they should just be able to run it down this Toledo defense's throat.
I believe so too. And don't underestimate the little intangible factor that's on Wyoming's side here. Craig Bohl has announced his retirement after this game. So this is his final game. This feels like win one for the Gipper. How can you not send a guy that's got the name Craig Bohl out with a bowl win? Like, really, how can you not? Poetic justice, no doubt. I think this is, and I think they like the guy. I haven't heard anything to say otherwise. And he's always had competitive teams here. I think there's that little chip on their shoulder. Let's send him out with a victory in his final game on the sidelines as head coach of this team. So keep that in mind as well. So that's another thing that I noticed with this Wyoming team. Not to mention, of course, it's going to be Tucker Gleason at quarterback for Toledo. DeQuan Finn's in the transfer portal, and one of their better offensive linemen as well is in the transfer portal for Toledo as well. So it's not what you want to see here against this Wyoming defense. So I think there's a lot of things that point to Wyoming there in that game. All right, let's go to New Year's Day. Hopefully by this time you've gotten over your New Year's Eve hangover. Monday, January 1st, ReliaQuest Bowl, Raymond James Stadium, Tampa Bay, Florida. I'm pretty sure this used to be the Outback Bowl. I mean, they called it the Outback Bowl for years. Now it's the ReliaQuest Bowl in Tampa. Wisconsin, LSU. LSU 7.5-point favorites, 54 the total in this game. This is one where definitely beware if you're going to bet it now. Jaden Daniels is a potential to opt out. Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors, the two stud receivers for LSU, potential to opt out, but not confirmed yet. There's a couple of injuries too on the LSU side on defense, which isn't any good to begin with. That's a concern. There's a few in the transfer portal, not so many impact players, but the main opt-outs are Jaden Daniels and his top two receivers are not at all a sure thing to play in this bowl game. On the Wisconsin side, they've already seen Braylon Allen, their starting running back, opt out. Their starting center, Tanner Bordolini, is going to be out for this game. Starting cornerback, Jason Maitre, is going to be out. Couple in the transfer portal at receiver are out. They've had some injuries too at the running back spot with Acker and Malusi. And then you've got another receiver that's injured. So they've got injuries. They've got opt-outs on the Wisconsin side as well that are concerning. You talk about the situation here with Wisconsin and LSU, and the fact that Mordecai will be at quarterback. You'd think Mordecai can move the ball like everybody does against LSU's defense, but if all things are considered, he probably can through the air in this because he's a capable enough quarterback, even though he was very erratic up and down this year for Wisconsin. Look, Wisconsin's defense, which we think historically very good, but I've got some. If Jaden Daniels and that's a big if, but if Jaden Daniels and the top two receivers and everybody's accounted for on offense here for LSU, Wisconsin's going to have a hard time stopping them because look at who they played here in the Big Ten this year: Minnesota, Nebraska, Northwestern, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Rutgers. Who the hell's the good offense they've played? Wisconsin. There's not a single one other than maybe Ohio State. And even Ohio State, they don't have the lightning fast potency that LSU does. But again, these are big ifs that all these guys are going to be in. And especially because we just saw Jaden Daniels win the Heisman. You just won the Heisman Trophy. Are you really going to, show up here and play in this bowl game here?
Yeah.
I'm not so sure about that. So this is a wait and see for me. If they're all in, it's over for me in this game if they all play for LSU. If they're all out, I think you jump on Wisconsin as quickly as you can because I think they're live to win the game outright because let's be real. Daniels and these receivers carried the fucking team all year, carried them here for LSU. So if they're missing, you jump on Wisconsin as quick as humanly possible. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, you do that because, this team laying points, you just don't want to do it. Bad defense. You don't want to lay points at all. And I think they should be able to score. Daniels doesn't play here. Does he really? There's no way.
I can't see it. But apparently he's left open the possibility to play. So that's why I'm hesitant.
Yeah, if he plays, they'll even score. This Wisconsin team's not very good, like you talked about. And they didn't play anybody, an offense that's good at all. And that wasn't that horrible of a game against Ohio State. And they had trouble all year. They're off.
Jaden Daniels ruled out about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, bingo.
Holy shit! I'm gonna.
There's no way he's gonna fucking play this game.
Wisconsin. So. All right. So literally 5 minutes ago, ruled out. Wow, great stuff. Great timing. I'm glad that was announced before we finished this show and specifically this game. So that's huge right now. We're gonna be betting.
They still have playmakers though. Yeah. Nussmeier. I think they could move the ball now. Could it get over?
That's a good point. Nussmeier's a good quarterback. He can play.
I think they can move the ball.
I still might look over, honestly, in this because with me with LSU overs. I mean, it was a gold mine this year. I mean, they're an over machine. And Nussmeier you're right. Nussmeier is capable. I agree with that fully. He has been around the block. He's not Daniels from the mobility standpoint. The ability to make game-breaking impact plays with his feet, with his legs. That's what makes Daniels so great. But he can throw the ball. He's got a good arm, good enough arm. Maybe not the arm Daniels has, but he's a good enough arm. He can play. Nussmeier's very experienced. So I still like Wisconsin now above 8, but I still like the over, even going to Nussmeier for LSU. So I still like Badgers and over here in this game. I would stick to the over too because I think people – and you may not have to rush to bet the over because people might still bet this under with Daniels out, not realizing how good Nussmeier can be. But I still lean Wisconsin here too because that defense is wretched for LSU. Absolutely wretched. They are a risk at any time they're laying more than a touchdown, that defense. And they might not get bailed out by the offense nearly as much compared to Jaden Daniels, even though I think Nussmeier can come in and play well. So that's the way I'd look at that game now. But good to see that it was confirmed just now on this show that Daniels is out. All right, Citrus Bowl, Orlando, Florida, Iowa, Tennessee. Tennessee 8.5 point home favorites, 36.5 the total in this game. I say just bet Iowa team total under. Don't worry about the 8.5 with Tennessee. I don't want Iowa. No way do I want to take Iowa in that offense, which is just a disgrace with Deacon Hill, and they can't even run the ball like they used to. And Tennessee, now the Tennessee defense this year, times was very good. At times they struggled, but I don't know. I think any defense that's capable can shut down this Iowa Hawkeyes offense. So I would say for this game, Conor Mack, and the total's very low, 36.5. I would say just find an Iowa team total, bet it under. Don't worry about the full game side. Don't worry about the full game total. Just go for Iowa team total under, because I'll be stunned if they move the football up and down the field in this game, which is basically just like we've seen pretty much all season. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, Cash with Michigan, the under, the whole thing.
Team
in
total
that game.
6.5, and it stayed under for Iowa. That's all you need to
Yes.
know in that game against Michigan.
I don't know how they get more than 10. Maybe they do. It just depends Tennessee here, how they come into this. But I don't know how it gets over too. Like, this game's just a wait, and I can't take Iowa. One thing, their defense is still pretty good, but they're just, it doesn't seem like they could win the game. I just I can't do it. So this is just dead pass.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, Jalen Wright, the good running back for Tennessee, will be out. He's opted out for this game. And they do have 4 corners in the transfer portal, but only one of them really played a lot of snaps. So keep that in mind. I just don't know if Iowa's even capable enough, though, to take advantage of any absences Tennessee might have, on the defensive side of the football.
Under. This total is actually high for some of their games lately.
Yeah, just absolutely incredible here. And look, just an awful offensive football team, Iowa. So, like I say, this is probably not a game I'm betting, but I would lean to an Iowa team total under once we see some team totals widely available for this game. All right, next up, we continue along. It is I lost my screen here with all the games here. There it is. We've got Liberty and Oregon in the Fiesta Bowl. And this is one where, the Fiesta Bowl over the years is the game where we see the group of 5 team, the best group of 5 team get to play, a major Power 5 team. And that's what we are seeing here in this game with the matchup here between Liberty and Oregon. We've got Oregon right now, 17.5 point home favorite, or not home favorites, but 17.5 point favorites in this game. The total currently at 65.5, 66, pretty much across the board. I like over in this game. That's definitely the bet that stands out. I really don't like, from a motivational standpoint, Liberty's going to be fired up. Every one of these, and we saw it last year in this very game, Connor, Fiesta Bowl, where it was Tulane versus USC. You had the best group of 5 team that got this opportunity playing a great Pac-12 team. Tulane not only covered, they won outright against USC. Now, Dan Lanning is spinning it as best he can, saying we're fired up, we're excited. We're going to try to bring our best to the table. From all indications, Bo Nix is going to play. He's not opting out, but there are concerns that Troy Franklin, Tez Johnson at receiver might opt out. Tysheem Johnson and a couple others on defense might opt out. Bucky Irving has opted out, the great running back for Oregon, along with Jackson Powers Johnson, who is a good center for them on the offensive line, a couple in the transfer portal. This still got a lot of weapons, no question about that. But there are absences to name that, to make you aware of. The money's come in on Oregon because, to be honest with you, when you look at the Liberty schedule, especially when it comes to their defense, they have not seen anything like what they're going to see here with Oregon. And we're talking about a Liberty defense that we just saw them give up 35 to New Mexico State, 30 to Louisiana Tech, 35 to Middle Tennessee. Like, if they're giving up those kind of points to those teams, Oregon's going to be good to hang 40, if not 50. In this game, if they're locked in and they're dialed in, and Bo Nix plays and he plays at the level he's capable of, especially against a outclassed defense like this, then Oregon's going to put up a big number. But I think Liberty's capable of chipping in too with Caden Salter, pretty good run game, good offensive line. I know Oregon's defense can be pretty good, but in a game like this, like USC, it reminds me of USC last year. They gave up points to Tulane. I think Oregon will give up, at 20, 21 points here to Liberty, and Oregon can take care of the rest and get you, 45, 48. You get 21 out of Liberty, and there you go. There's your over for this game with these two teams. So I do like the total. I like over 65.5. At the initial opening number, 14.5, I wasn't that interested in Liberty, but it's getting up now more and more to the kind of number where I'm getting a little more tempted to take the big number with Liberty. I'm not there yet, and I do acknowledge their schedule this year, Liberty. It was pretty weak. Let's be real. I mean, and that's the thing that really scares me the most, that Liberty, this is a culture shock for them. When your schedule this year has been Bowling Green, New Mexico State, Buffalo, Florida International, Sam Houston, Jacksonville State, Middle Tennessee, Western Kentucky, Louisiana Tech, Old Dominion, UMass, and UTEP. Like, this is just not even, this destroys, Oregon destroys every single opponent on Liberty's schedule this year. So this is a huge, massive step up in class for Liberty. So will they handle it? I'm not sure. I'm not laying this many with Oregon. I'm leaning a little more to Liberty, but I'm not sure I'll pull the trigger. But I will absolutely 100% be on the over in this game, 65.5. What do you think here, Fiesta Bowl, Connor?
Yeah, Liberty, just a great year, and they'll be pumped. But that defense is not very good from them. Like, they were just able, especially, outscore teams all year long. And Oregon, I think you look at their team total. Like, I just, how do they not get 49? Right around there in this game. So I just like Oregon team total, and the full game could get there. The big thing is Liberty, like you talked about, just get 20. SC had 27, Cal had 19, Washington State 24. We know Washington got into the 30s. And some of the other, smaller schools, Stanford, Colorado, Arizona State 13. They did look good against Oregon State. The Oregon defense I thought was pretty good. Elite. I don't think so. So maybe, Liberty could get into the 20s, full game could get over as well. But Oregon scores here what they want. Like Ragu just put in the chat, I think they get around there, high 40s, maybe in 50s in this game.
I think that's a very good possibility that they can do whatever they want on offense here for Oregon, with Oregon in this game. This is apparently, I screwed up here with Bucky for Oregon. Bucky's playing, says Dan Lanning. Apparently that's a change of plans, because initially he wasn't going to play, but Dan Lanning apparently on Friday, this past Friday, said Bucky's playing. So again, these things can change though, but as of right now, Bucky's in. Bucky Irving for Oregon, and we know obviously outstanding season running the football for this team. 1063 in terms of rushing yards this year, 1,000-yard rusher in 13 games, 10 touchdowns on the ground. Absolutely outstanding. And don't underestimate 400 receiving. Yeah, he's in. Well, that's huge. It's absolutely enormous for Oregon. So yeah, I like over certainly, and Oregon should put up a big number. But I think Liberty's putting up some points as well here in this game with their offense. All right, let's go to the last two games on this edition of Hitting the Books Part 2 Bowl Preview. It's the two games you're all excited for the most, the two college football playoff games. Semifinals on New Year's Day. We start in the Rose Bowl, Alabama, Michigan, the first college football playoff semifinal. Currently, Michigan 1.5 point favorites, 45.5 the total in this game. You look at Michigan, obviously great season, and I think when you look at this game, particularly against Alabama, what's going to be the most interesting element to me is how Michigan's very good defense, matches up here against Alabama's improving offense. Now, people have obviously sung the praises of Michigan's defense all year, but they have definitely been bolstered by a Big Ten schedule this year and a Big Ten season of horrendous offensive teams. Like the best offensive teams they play, and they did play well against Penn State. That was one of the better teams. They shut them down. They did struggle a bit with Ohio State and Maryland, though, on the defensive side of the football. And there's no doubt that right now, Alabama was not a great offensive team early in the year, but they have really gotten it going down the stretch. It started with that Mississippi State game where they put up 40, but, 34 against Tennessee, 42 against LSU, 49 against Kentucky. They played well on offense against Georgia, a very good Georgia defense in the SEC championship game. I think when you look at it, Michigan's defense, people just absolutely loving the way they've played, but they have just not played many great offenses, many balanced offenses via the run and the pass, which Alabama is. And more importantly, they have not faced a quarterback that's capable of making a difference running with it, a mobile quarterback, a dual threat quarterback. Where are the dual threat quarterbacks that Michigan's defense has faced this year? Drew Aller's more of a pocket passer for Penn State. Kyle McCord's a pocket passer for Ohio State. They really haven't had to match up against a Jalen Milroe type athlete at the quarterback position this year, Michigan. So I think that's going to be a challenge for them here in this game. Their own offense with J.J. McCarthy and company. Now, do keep in mind, it's an offense that lost one of their best, if not their best, offensive lineman, Zach Zinter, for the season. That is obviously significant, no question about that. But, we've seen them still be able to move the football. And we've seen Alabama's defense this year, not vintage, I would say. They've had games where they had their struggles. Texas, of course, went into Tuscaloosa, and that's when Quinn Ewers threw the ball all over that defense. And, of course, we saw the last 2 games of the season. I mean, Auburn, had a lot of offensive success against them in the Iron Bowl. They played well against Georgia, but, Georgia, not their best performance. And Georgia had a few turnovers that kept points off the board. They also missed a couple field goals. I remember that game. Georgia probably could have scored more points if they didn't miss their kicks. They didn't have those turnovers. So Alabama not so much they stopped Georgia. Georgia stopped themselves with a few mistakes. I think the total is actually a little light in this game. We think of Michigan as defense. We think of Michigan as an under team. But when you look at Michigan, when they played Ohio State, that game went over the total. The Maryland game went over the total. They've actually gone over the total, Michigan, believe it or not, in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of their last 9 games. They're 6-2-1 to the over in their last 9 games. Alabama was actually an over team this year, 9-3-1 to the over in their 13 games. So I actually think this total is just a little bit light. I see this more of a 28-21 game or a 30-24 game, or even 27-21. Something like that would cash this over, with this total being in the low mid 40s. I think it's lower because of the overall narrative and perception of Michigan, that it's a dominant defense. Is it? You played a Penn State team. You played Ohio State, who did move the ball, even though they beat Ohio State. Ohio State had success moving the ball, 24 points against Michigan. And if Ohio State can score 24 against Michigan, I think Alabama can get 24 against Michigan. And if Alabama gets to 24 against Michigan, there's a damn good chance this game goes over the total. So I think the total's a little light. I lean Alabama too, but I like the total more. So it's a lean for me with Alabama, but I like this over. Very low, in my opinion. A little too low. I think based on the perception, it's a dominant Michigan defense. I disagree a little bit. I think it's factored into one of the worst offensive seasons I've ever seen out of the Big Ten collectively, top to bottom.
Yeah.
Brutal offenses across the board. I think this will be a bigger challenge for the Wolverines on that side of the ball. What do you think here, Conor, first semifinal?
Yeah, even the last year, right, in the semifinal, TCU, that game was just a wild game, right, in the 50s or whatever.
And couldn't stop them. Yep.
Yeah.
And remember, a mobile quarterback too, Max Duggan. Mobile quarterback, guy that could run, guy that could make plays with his feet, and they were a mess on defense trying to contain him. And Jalen Milroe's got some of those attributes.
I've just liked what I've seen from Milroe as the year has gone on. And he still kind of revert to some of the stuff he does to early on in the year. But I like what he's doing. Bama's defense, too. I think one thing Michigan will have some success is, and what they want to do is run the football. Like, Alabama wasn't bad against the run. Like, I gave up 125 a game. So I think Michigan could have some success. And in the end, if Michigan is in this game, McCarthy's got to make some plays. Because I think they're just going to want to try to run it and just win this game in the trenches and try to keep it low scoring. But I don't know if that's going to work at all. But I think that's what they want to do here. Maybe take a few shots with McCarthy. But I think Bama wins here. I just, in the end, give me Bama.
All right. Like I say, I definitely, if this number stays where it is, I'll probably end up on the Crimson Tide here at some point. And again, to me, too, this is a prove it for Michigan. Michigan has had no problem at times getting to the playoff. It's about playing well in the playoffs, in the semifinals. That's where the struggle has been for Jim Harbaugh and his team. So can they finally put that to bed here this year and win a
And Bama, the
ugly.
4-1 here, Bama, they just seem pumped.
Yep.
Like, Michigan is in undefeated.
Yep.
I don't know. Michigan's a little like, oh boy, they got Bama here. You got to win this, to get to the title game. So,
and to my point about Michigan's defense, I'm not saying Michigan's defense is bad. Okay, it's an excellent defense.
No, they're good.
They're good. But I'm talking about there's levels, as my guy Dutch would say. There's levels to this. And when you look at when they've had to play in the college football playoff the last 2 years, This Michigan defense, we saw them give up 51 and get absolutely annihilated, that defense, by TCU last year in the semifinals. And then 2 years ago, also in the semifinals against Georgia, they gave up 34 points and they lost 34-11. So they've had problems defensively in the playoff against the Georgias and the TCUs. And again, Georgia that year, I think, had Bennett at quarterback. That guy can move around a bit. They had Duggan last year, TCU, another mobile quarterback, and they're going to see one here, and a lot of speed.
Speed and
well.
playmakers, exactly.
Yep. Yeah. And Michigan struggled. Couldn't contain Georgia, couldn't contain TCU. For as good as the defense was going into those games, into the Georgia game 2 years ago in the semis, into the TCU game in the semis last year, it was a different defense. It was a defense that just couldn't keep it going in the semifinal against these teams with playmakers and speed and mobility at the quarterback spot. And that's what friggin' worries me again here against Bama. Simple as that.
Yeah. But I think this isn't I like how Bama's been playing a little bit lately, but this isn't a vintage. You talked about the defense, the offense. To me, this is if Michigan ever's going to get them, it's here if they can,
Yeah, I agree. I think from the totality of the season, there's been better Alabama offenses and quarterbacks, clearly, because we were talking about whether Jalen Milroe was the guy early in the year. That's how bad things were. But they they played absolutely better. You can tell he's one of the most improved players, honestly, in college football from early in the year to now is Jalen Milroe. He has improved just so significantly, and that's what's bothering me about Michigan here. Now they got to take on an Alabama offense that's full of confidence the way they played late in the season.
Real quick on Ragu's, the ticket and the money. I would wait because we're so far out. Yeah. Like if this was just like in a few days, we're so far out. Once you see the money a little bit towards that week, I think you'll see it a lot clearer, a little bit, because we see this every year and we got to wait a month. It's just people jumping in early, putting their money compared to what's late. So I think, towards more game time, a few days we'll see it. That really what's up.
All right, good stuff. And that'll be, of course, Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit for ESPN calling that game. The second semifinal will be Sean McDonough and Greg McElroy. The Sugar Bowl, the second semifinal, Texas and Washington. Right here, we've got Texas 4-point favorites, 63.5 the total in this game. I remember I thought maybe Washington would meet their maker against Oregon, and they surprised me, 34-31, beating the Ducks. Remember, everyone said Oregon's going to get them, and what are we missing here? An undefeated team getting 9.5, 10 points in that Pac-12 championship game, and sure enough, Washington still took care of business. They were the better team, start to finish, over Oregon. And now here they are catching points again, and the money for the second straight game is flooding in. Well, not flooding in, but there has been some Texas money because they opened, 3.5, and it's up to 4 now in this one. This is a tough one for me. I'm done betting against Washington right now, especially with them being the underdog in this game. I think we got to give them their due. Kalen DeBoer is a hell of a coach. I know there's people that say their defense is a little bit vulnerable. I don't know. I see the defense make plays when they have to. Do they give up points? Yes. Do they give up yards? Yes. They make plays when they have to with the game on the line. And then, of course, they got a guy that at the quarterback position has played almost as good as anybody else in the country, and Michael Penix Jr. There's no question about that. Now, look, Texas looks like a freight train here down the stretch. I will not take that away from them. Really, since the Oklahoma loss, their only loss of the season, they've been excellent. They've crushed BYU, beat Houston, beat Kansas State, beat TCU. A couple of close games there, but then down the stretch really amped it up, destroying Iowa State, Texas Tech, and Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game. Quinn Ewers is playing at a high level. He's playing excellent football down the stretch. Numbers are outstanding. And I know, look, when you look at the situation here for Texas, I know their main running back is out, but they've still got C.J. Baxter and Jaden Blue capable at that position. I know there's a questionable tab besides Xavier Worthy at receiver, but I think he'll have enough time to be ready to go for this game. Adonai Mitchell, A.D. Mitchell as they call him, should be good to go. It's Texas playing great. There's no question. This is the Sarkisian Bowl, you could say as well, because Sark with Texas and one of his previous head coaching spots was Washington much earlier in his career. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic here with that. But this is one where I think you look at the matchup. This Washington team I love their offense. They really have they really been stopped by anybody this year? I mean, the Arizona State game was a weird anomaly where they only scored 15 points, but they were off that huge win against Oregon. I kind of think they were, just off their game a little bit based on the spot. Other than that, this offense has been almost like a machine, where they've scored big points in every game. The Oregon State game, remember, was bad weather. The Washington State game that they won in the Apple Cup, the weather wasn't great there either. In good weather environments, and obviously you're going to get good weather here. This is indoors, in Mercedes-Benz or Caesars Superdome here in New Orleans. So that weather ain't going to be an issue. Fast track. There's no reason to expect Michael Penix Jr. not to play well. There's no reason for their offense, to expect them to not play well. With Dylan Johnson running the ball with an outstanding. And you know what's great about Washington too? They got Jalen McMillan back before the Pac-12 championship game against Oregon. He was like their second best receiver after Odunze. So now you've got that tandem together again for the second straight game, Jalen McMillan and Rome Odunze. And that is going to be a big time challenge for Texas's defense. Texas's defense played really well down the stretch, but Iowa State, an inconsistent Texas Tech offense, and Oklahoma State, while those are nice defensive performances, this is a better offense by far, hands down, not even close, that you're playing here, taking on Washington. So I actually lean dog. I lean Huskies. I like this over. I really do like that because I think both of these offenses are peaking at the right time. I mean, we just saw Texas score 49 and 57 in their last two games. I think based on the playing conditions indoors at the Superdome, it's realistic to expect Washington to get into the 30s. I think Texas has 30s potential in this game. So we've got a really good chance, I think, to get over 63.5. So I lean Washington, and I like the total even more, over 63.5 here in the Sugar Bowl. Conor, what do you think here? The second semifinal. Is Texas going to be too much for Washington, or are betting markets and odds makers combined disrespecting Washington yet again?
I think they're disrespecting Washington. Again, on the total, let's just talk about that real quick. As of now, I'm just off because I think we'll see this is 63 a lot of places. Does it get a little bit lower? I'm going to wait on that till this game. I think I move on the total if I'm going to move on it at all. I want to go back to last year. I love breaking this down with Oregon game. These teams played in the Alamo Bowl last year. 27-20, Washington, a lot of the same players in this game. And Ewers here, he was good, 369. Texas only had 51 on the ground, 420 total. They only had 20 points. They had some stalled drives. I think he missed a field goal. They didn't have any turnovers. Washington, 445, 369 in the air, 158 on the ground. That's the key. They did that against Oregon, which I can watch. If they run the football like that, they had 157, against Oregon. They're right around there. They're in this game, they win it. Like if they only run for 50 yards, they're in trouble. But if they get to that number, not only they're in this game, they could win it. So I know there's a little revenge. Texas, big school, everything. I think it's a good game, but I got to be on the dog here with the Huskies.
Yeah, great job. Remember, I totally skipped over that in my look into this game, getting ready for the show. I had totally forgotten. Didn't even look into it. Totally had forgotten they played each other in a bowl game last year. The Alamo Bowl, these two teams. I'm seeing it now. I'm pulling it up now. 27-20, nothing fluky. Washington outgained Texas 445 to 420. Held them to just 51 rushing yards in that bowl win last year. So everything Texas did on offense was Ewers through the air, 369 through the air in that game. They had a little bit more balance. Remember, they had a Taulapapa running the ball last year. They had a little bit more of a diverse attack last year on the ground, Washington. They're not as good running the ball this year. They're more of a pass-heavy team this year. But again, that pass.
But I was surprised how well they ran against Oregon. Everyone's talking about this Oregon defense, and they won at the line of scrimmage. That's why I liked Washington before. As soon as I saw that, I bet it right away again on that first drive. Bet Washington right away again when I saw that.
I think people disrespected their ability a lot in the trenches a little bit going into that Oregon game. Saying Oregon's really going to be able to push them around, and that didn't happen. It was Washington that was basically stamping and cementing their dominance physically in the trenches along the line of scrimmage at the point of attack. And I think that's what a lot of people really were surprised with watching that Pac-12 championship game unfold. And that's why I think they're in this game. Like we're just asking Washington to compete here with Texas. And there's nothing to me that indicates they can't go toe-to-toe with the Texas Longhorns. Again, a team they beat last year in a bowl game, 27-20. Washington beat them in a bowl game. So yeah, I mean, that's exactly why I said for me. I took my lumps and I licked my wounds betting against Washington. I fell into that narrative that they were lucky to beat Oregon the first time. Oregon's rolling right now. They're going to come back in the Pac-12 championship and beat the hell out of them, and it didn't happen. In fact, Washington was just the dominant team, especially physically in the trenches, start to finish. So that's enough for me to say, you know what, we're done betting against Washington. We're either on them or we're passing this game. From a side perspective here in the Sugar Bowl, the second semifinal, which should be a great game. Looking forward to both college football playoff semifinals, no doubt. Great stuff. This is our last, I guess, main show. We might do something on the day of the national championship game on Monday, January 8th, to be determined. But this is our last show, certainly of 2023. It's been just another incredible season here on Hitting the Books. I love doing these shows with Conor. What's it been now? 3 years, 4 years now we've been doing this show. It's been a lot of fun. And Jose Bouquet, the work he does behind the scenes, the graphics, putting the individual game preview video clips on YouTube, all that work he does, we appreciate that immensely. And we appreciate you guys joining us all season long here on Hitting the Books. Conor, it's been another fun season, my friend. And hopefully, touch wood, nothing crazy happens. We're back here in late August at 2024, getting ready for a fourth or fifth season of Hitting the Books right here.
Yeah, I shout out to all you guys, especially everyone that watches this show at all times and supports us every week, and even the people that don't. I love it too in all our videos. But I think if you watch the show, I say it every year at the end of the year, I think you get the info, you win a lot more than you lose. I know we do in college football, Babano, and I think if you listen to this, you will too. And yeah, it was a great year. I love it, man. I'll see you next year. We'll do some for the national championship though. And wait, I wanted to hit, you mentioned it, Jose. Shout out to Jose, T, Preston, everyone in the back that does everything with the shows and clips them and everything. We really, really appreciate you guys, especially getting it out top notch. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. No doubt. Absolutely. They're the engine that keeps it going too, behind the scenes to get everything set and ready. And again, to put the clips on YouTube for the individual games that we talk about. So absolutely great work all around. It's been a lot of fun, but we're not going anywhere. We'll still be on the channel quite a bit moving forward, but it is always kind of sad to see a show end for another season, but of course we'll be back with plenty more here with in the weeks and months to come. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button on the way out. We love and appreciate every one of you tuning in all season long here to Hitting the Books. And that's a wrap. We appreciate everyone behind the scenes in the chat tuning in. Thanks for all of your support all season of the College Football Hitting the Books show. For Conor Mack, Jose Bouquet behind the scenes doing a great job. I'm Ian Cameron. This has been the final edition for 2023 of college football Hitting the Books right here on Pub Sports Radio. And for the final time this year, class dismissed.
Dismissed, baby.